So you received this wonderful email about getting a UX interview. Wow. A moment of excitement followed by a moment of panic. Imagine walking into an interview confident but uncertain and then coming out of it knowing fully well that you nailed it. Now imagine not doing that once, doing it 3 times in a row, transforming 3 job interviews into 3 offers. Sounds unreal, right? But I did it. In this video, I'm going to break down for you how I transformed 3 interviews into 3 UX offers. And I ended up choosing the one that was most suitable for my career at the time. If you're new here, my name is Namat, and I'm a product designer and design instructor. So for some context, this was 2022. I was right out of maternity leave. And for those of you who are moms out there, I'm sure you can relate. I bow down to you. It's much harder for us women. The fire that was set in me was very strong. I finished my maternity leave. I was back into my job and I really wanted something more. I had a wonderful, steady job, but I wanted more. I wanted to grow in my career. So I dived in and I transformed my resume and my portfolio to something much better than what it was to qualify me for a new position that is more senior. In the previous video in the series, I talked to you a little bit about the 3 steps that I applied to actually get there, to get to these interviews. After applying for many positions, I did receive 3 emails to prepare for 3 different interviews. And that's when a new set of work started. So the first step that I applied, the first strategy that I applied was reverse engineering the job description. The 3 companies for which I got the interview were very, very different. One of them was a small startup that was looking for a product designer that would have a knowledge of AI and would leverage AI to create a very complex process for them. The second company was mid-sized and they needed a lead product designer who would lead and mentor the team, mentor junior designers, and work specifically on design systems. The third company was way more developed. They had 120 designers in their ranks and they wanted a lead product designer with enough experience to mentor, to guide, to work on very complex processes. So I knew from the size of these companies that what they wanted was very different, and also the way I had to present myself was different. And this is when I went into each job description and I went through all the details, identifying what is it that they really were looking for, what is it that they needed. And I identified specific skills that I had that would be most suitable for that particular role. So when it came to the interview, I made sure to speak to those points that were the highlight of what they wanted. Mind you, I was not making up any of those skills. They were actually my skills, but I was focusing on what was most suitable for that particular job, what they were looking for. Some of those things I was able to tell from the description and be slightly prepared for. Many times you won't be able to know that beforehand. It's only during that interview that you'll be able to tell, based on the people, based on the team that is interviewing you, what you would need to improvise. But whatever level of preparation that you can do ahead of time would be great. Make sure to investigate that particular company, research them. What do they do? What do you like about them? Very often those questions come up. What do you like about our company? What attracted you to our team? So it would be nice to be prepared with those kind of questions. I very often also look at their website, anything that draws my attention. So preparing for the interview was not just about researching their requirements. I made sure to bring my best to that interview. And that was reflected in the way I dressed up, in the way I prepared myself, in the way I spoke, being fully professional, kind, empathetic. Today, many people think that it's cool to dress up in a certain way. They think it's okay to walk with your flip-flops and go to work. Well, maybe it is okay, but not in my book. How you present yourself to the world is very, very important. And I think having a job as a software designer, as a UX designer, is an incredible privilege. So when walking into that interview, I showed up as a professional. I showed the best version of who I am. I highly recommend that you present yourself to the interviews 100% professionally, the way you dress up, the way you speak, and also make sure to always show up on time. I show up like 10 minutes early just to make sure that everything is ready. I test my presentation multiple times to make sure I will not have technical issues in the middle of the interview. Mind you, this may end up happening anyways, but that's okay. Because I've done the necessary preparation, I will know how to handle that in the middle. So please be prepared, research the company, know what they do, prepare yourself to present yourself really well as a professional before you actually walk into that interview. The next key strategy is using storytelling to speak about the case studies within my portfolio. A lot of you looking at this are beginners. You're applying for your first job, so you don't necessarily have a case study that is written, and that's absolutely okay. But what I mean by case study is my portfolio is not just a bunch of images. There are a lot of things that I cannot just display with designs and images, but I would have to speak to. And they showcase my knowledge of the UX process. They showcase the effort that I've done, the relationships that I've built, my awareness of the big picture. So that's what I mean by a case study. A case study is how you would speak to the work that you've done, how it progressed, how it encompasses the UX process and the different stages that you've gone through. So let me tell you how those interviews differed a little bit. The startup company didn't have a very rigid process. It felt like I was meeting with the team. There was, of course, the hiring manager, but there were many team members. They were very casual. They're asking me questions. They asked me to walk them through my portfolio, and I did that. I did that in detail. I highlighted specific areas knowing what they were looking for. Because they were looking for specific AI capabilities, I spoke about my experience with AI, the exposure that I've had to it, and how I've introduced AI in specific SaaS products that I've designed. The company that had some interest in the design system, I really focused on that. I spoke about how I built a whole team and how we introduced the design system to our company and how we've built everything from scratch and progressed through that. I spoke to my experience in that area. Now, the third company had a much more structured UX interview. They had a full challenge laid out. So in the first half an hour of the interview, it was more casual. They were chatting with me. They wanted to get to know me and hear a little bit about my portfolio. But they had a very specific UX challenge where they actually gave me a task that I had to go away for 1 hour, build, think about it, and then come back and share it with them. And that was extremely exciting. So that was extremely challenging because 1 hour was very little time to deal with a very complex problem. But I did my best. I was fully focused. I made sure that my mind didn't go all over the place thinking of details. I had to prioritize what I had time to focus on within 1 hour. I focused on those areas. I created a low fidelity prototype just to show what I'm doing. Mind you, not in Figma. You don't have time to go into Figma within 1 hour. I used a paper and pen. I took images of what I created. My main focus was to show the structure, to show the UX. Of course, I wasn't looking at creating a refined UI, but I wanted to use my time to show my logic, to show how mature my thinking was within the UX process. And then I came back, I took images and uploaded them, and I spoke to the progress and the user flow and how the solution that I was proposing would solve the main problem that they gave me. And once again, that interview went extremely well. They loved my thought process, they loved what I was sharing, and took me to the next level. This brings me to my third key strategy. In each one of those interviews, I was extremely confident. Not confident because I knew everything. I was confident because I knew I was doing the best that I could for that particular situation. One thing that was different about me in that stage in my life that I'm utterly grateful for is I started owning who I am. Each one of us is an absolutely unique human being. We're different. We have different skills. We have different nature. Our uniqueness makes us who we are. And in 2022, after maternity leave, I stopped hiding who I am. I started fully owning who I am as a person because I knew that my identity, my uniqueness is what made me worthwhile. Previously, I thought that in a professional setting, I had to blend in and just be like the rest. I was afraid to show my qualities, but it is those qualities that I was previously afraid of. It's those qualities that made me who I am. It's those qualities that made me uniquely qualified because I cared so much about everything. I was empathetic, I was passionate, and I knew that I had to put those things forward because a company that didn't want me for those qualities that made me unique was not the right place for me. So I walked into each of those interviews fully me. Please take this with a grain of salt. That does not mean that I spoke without thinking what I was saying. Not at all. But I was not afraid to show my passion. I was not afraid to show my uniqueness. Yes, I researched those companies. Yes, I put thought into what I was saying. But at the same time, I was natural. I was confident. I was intuitive. I was in the moment, responding to what is happening with kindness, with empathy, with awareness. Being fully present in those interviews is actually what enabled me to rock them. I was not in my head. I was fully there, relaxed, and yet fully involved and intense and engaged, passionate and pleasant. I gave my best into every single situation. And that's how people responded to me. When I didn't know something, I was not afraid to say I didn't know it. But I went about talking to my process on how I would go about searching for something that I didn't know. People don't expect you to know everything, but they want to see how you would solve a problem, even if you didn't know where to start. So I spoke to that. I spoke to where I would search for something, where I would get started. And that showed them my process, my thinking process, my ability to solve problems. I also asked the right questions, and that was a game changer because people want to see that you're not just answering their questions, but you're also thinking ahead. You're asking the right questions. You're asking intelligent questions about what you're trying to create. That also shows them how you process information. So confidence was essential, being natural and at ease, being human, and not being afraid to mess up. You're doing the best that you can, and that's all that matters. Lastly, after that UX challenge in the larger company, I was asked to meet with a few people as a second follow-up interview, and that's where I met with the VP and some directors. And it was more at this stage like a personality check because the team loved me. We were discussing details. I got to ask them some questions, but it was really friendly and reassuring because I knew at that point that they actually wanted to have me. And that's when you need to be prepared for harder questions, like what is your salary expectation? You want to make sure you have an idea of what is the salary that you want. And for that, you need to do some research ahead of time. Because if you don't know what should be your salary, they're going to lowball you for a smaller number. And you will be surprised at how much better you can do with negotiation if you have an idea of what's a fair pay for your title within your area. So please do that research. There's so many tools available online. Ask around if you know other designers who are in jobs around you. Ask around, but make sure you're prepared for that HR conversation. In my case, that was the first time in my life I was actually prepared because I hate those financial questions, but I was prepared for them. And because I was in this very blessed position of having multiple interviews and job offers, I was able to negotiate and ask for a higher pay. When I decided which is the company I wanted to go for, and in my case, it was the larger company because it had a much more mature team in which I could grow as a senior designer, I asked them to match the highest salary offer that I received from the other companies. And they were able to do that. So please do your research. Don't be afraid to ask for a higher number. If they can't give it to you, they will tell you anyways if they want you. So don't be afraid to ask, because I was before and then I wasn't. I asked for what was fair, for what seemed right for me at the moment, and it was incredibly fulfilling because I got it. One day, I had 3 beautiful email offers in my inbox asking me to join their company. And it was a very hard decision because I couldn't have gone wrong with any of those companies. Each one of them was uniquely wonderful and different and could have been a wonderful career for me. So it took me a while to think of what I wanted, where I was, and what I needed most. And then I made my decision. I accepted the one offer and I had to speak to the others very gracefully and ask them to stay in touch. I didn't want to lose the connection. They were wonderful interviews. I would have loved to work with them as well. But I actually shared with them that I had other offers that seemed more interesting for my career at this stage. I hope you found my story inspiring and useful. I hope it inspires you to take the next amazing step in your career. In my next video, we create your design portfolio following the UX process. We're going to follow the different steps of the UX process to create a design portfolio that you would be proud of and that will get you your job interview. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do and hit that notification button so you know when the next video is out. I am here because I care, and I'm very grateful to be part of your design journey.